Welcome back, everyone, to the second episode of the main event, a 5A basketball podcast based here in Oregon. My name is Brian Rathbone, a reporter with the Bulletin, and joining me again is Jackson Noggle from Prep Hoops, Oregon. Jackson, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Coming off a nice winter break, as I'm sure you are as well. Watched some nice hoops over the awesome winter break. A little holiday tourney action, and I'm excited to kind of get into league play here as we turn the coin into a new year.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot to talk about. Today we're going to talk about kind of our top 10 5A teams, kind of entering into league play now that we've had 10 or so, or a handful of games, between five and 10 games each team has played, have a little better understanding of where teams are at. But before we do that, we were both at some tournaments this weekend. You were at the Les Schwab, the Les Schwab Invitational crazy tournament. It sounds like. You give us a couple brief synopsis on or the Cliff Notes version of what you saw this weekend over in Hillsborough.
Man, yeah, I got up there. I believe it was Thursday afternoon. I was able to catch the noon game there, and I just watched pretty much some nonstop awesome basketball for 2 days. And that obviously included two massive upsets by Westland. It was really cool to see the local team be able to pull off 2 wins over 2 nationally ranked, just pretty much superpowers. So, it was a ridiculous environment in there, and not to take away anything from those other, in-state matchups. Earlier in the day, there was some awesome matchups between, a lot of other 6A title contenders. So that's not, our forte here on this show. There was no 5A teams involved in the Invitational this year, which is a bummer. I would have loved to see Summit or maybe Wilsonville in that field to see how they could do. But it was still a blast to get out there and cover that event regardless. And I'm excited to get into some 5A action now.
Yeah. So you saw the Sierra Canyon and the Duncanville game?
Absolutely. I saw both of those, and I got to say the crowd there at Liberty was amazing.
Yeah.
The defense chants were it was thunderous.
Mm-hmm.
There were times where the Sierra Canyon and Duncanville players were having to whisper into each other's ears to not whisper, yell.
Yeah.
To get the message across, to communicate in any sort of way because of how loud it was in there. So I think that played a huge factor. And Wilsonville's 6-man rotation they played harder than both of those teams. They came up with more loose balls. They forced more turnover, at least in this Duncanville game. I know they did. And they out-rebounded Sierra Canyon with their tallest player being, maybe 6'4", a generous 6'4". So it was pretty astounding to see. And it was just a great overall week for Oregon basketball.
Yeah, I think it was the first time in a decade that an Oregon team is, won that tournament. So that's really cool. And yeah, Westland, they look like a force, man. They did in football. They look primed to do it again in basketball.
Absolutely.
Still crazy that they beat those 2 teams because, like you said, those are like Duncanville. They're the number 1 ranked team, and then you got Bronny James and Bryce James and Sierra Canyon. That's nuts.
Certainly 2 of the biggest upsets I've ever seen. I'll say it time and time again.
Well, over here in Bend, they had the Oregon Holiday Hoop Fest. Not quite the star power that your tournament had, but it was still a really, really good tournament. We got to the finals on Friday, and between Summit and Cascade Christian, 3A defending champs, and there's 3 of your top 10 juniors in that game, and lo and behold, Cascade Christian 3A power comes in and just stuns like Summit. That was a really kind of crazy game because they just were kind of able to. They built this pretty big lead in the first quarter, was able to kind of hold it throughout the whole game. Really kind of impressed with that. I think it's Austin Maurer, their 7-footer. Just man, that guy he's just efficient, just did the right thing on defense, super disruptive. Just someone just had no answer for it. Really no I wouldn't say they didn't have an answer because they didn't, make it a game kind of towards the end. But man, I thought that for sure that, as the game kind of went on, someone would, pull away. But no, Cascade Christian, man, legit.
I was also surprised to see that result. Cascade Christian, yeah, they proved themselves that game. They got a lot of hype coming into the year as a 3A favorite, and yeah, that's a big win, a
Yeah,
big cross classification win for them.
Yeah, young team too. Mostly all juniors. I'd say is kind of like their best players are all juniors and maybe even some
Right.
sophomores. And I was definitely surprised by that. So this tournament had kind of there's two divisions, so there's two teams that can win this, and then Mountain View also made it to the finals on Friday, excuse me, and fell in overtime. That was a really good game against Roseburg. Second time they had played. Mountain View had a chance to win it. They had the ball under 10 seconds, up by 2. I think they should have maybe ran the clock out a little bit, but they tried throw a pass, try to get on the fast break and end up being a turnover, and then Roseburg comes down, scores final seconds, and wins in overtime. So handed Mountain View its first loss of the year. That was a really fun game. Roseburg's kind of a fun team because they don't have any bigs. They don't have any. They're all guards. Like it's you look at their roster, it is all listed as guards through top to bottom. So it's just kind of fun to see how they play and just kind of how the little small ball lineup kind of worked in their favor. But yeah, really fun. Like both those games are really good games. We got a game winner from Caldera earlier in the tournament, so that was for the first year team, that's probably gonna be one of the high points of the year. Just getting that win over team from Washington, La Center. But yeah, fun couple days of basketball here in Central Oregon. It just sounds like it was that way kind of across the state.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of excuse me, a lot of other holiday tournaments we're not even getting to. A lot of 5A teams played elsewhere around the state. But we will get into it a little bit, I think, as we go through our top 10s here in a little bit.
All right. So yeah, let's get into these top 10s. We'll do these every once in a while just to kind of check in on how these teams are doing. So these are our first ones of the year. So Jackson, let's start at number 10 and kind of work our way up. Who's your number 10 team right now?
Yeah, absolutely, man. My number 10 is a team from a very familiar league of mine, and that's the Midwestern League. And it's a team that's played well so far, by my analysis, and that's Thurston. I think there's a pretty clear top 5. I think we're going to agree a lot around top 5 at least.
Yeah.
With who those teams are, maybe not the order, but who the top 5 teams are. After that, it gets a little foggy. And I think Thurston has done enough here early in the season to warrant them getting a mention here on this top 10 pod. They're 6-4 on the year, which is a solid record. A lot of teams, like most 5A teams, have at least 3 losses already because they're playing cross classification. They're playing out of state teams. That's why it's a little bit hard to get a good gauge on a lot of these teams. But if we look at Thurston here, I'll take a look at their schedule. They got a good win over Milwaukee, who's a 5A team, a good win over Lebanon, and then they lost by 35 points to a Barlow team that's terrific really at the 6A level. So I'm not really too worried about that result. And then their other losses are another 6A team, Sunset, Mountain View, a team that's thought of highly at the 5A level, and then Churchill, which is the same deal.
Yeah.
So in my mind, they've taken care of business against the teams that they should have. And then a toss-up game in my eyes against Milwaukee, they were able to come away with a win. So I'm happy with what Thurston's been able to do over there with a pretty strong player in Nate Stifler that can really shoot the rock. He's a strong prospect in the class of 2025, I believe.
Okay, so sophomore.
Yeah, he's a sophomore. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. He's definitely a great player for them, and he's surrounded by a couple good guards as well. So Thurston at my number 10 spot.
Well, that's exactly who I have at 10.
Wow.
And for a lot of the same reasons. It's like, all right, they played Churchill close. Their only losses are like you said to a really good Barlow team, and an early season loss to Sunset and Mountain View. And Mountain View, I think, is we'll get there, but I have them, pretty far up there. And so, like you pointed out, there's about 5 teams that I think we'll probably agree on, but and then it gets a little dicey after that. But yeah, Thurston number 10. So far, one for one. And just so everyone knows, we are sharing each other's top tens for the first time right now. So 1 for 1 so far. All right. Who do you have at number 9?
Yeah, we'll move along. That's an added little fun element here. We're kind of getting to see we're getting unveiled as at the same time you guys are. So number 9, I also have another Midwestern League team. I have Crater, kind of the same deal here. A team that's played, I think, maybe just a tear above my expectations so far. They've taken care of business against the teams, like I said earlier with Thurston, that they should have beat. They have a tough loss against the 6A team, Grants Pass. They lost by 18 to them, but playing up the classification is never going to be easy. A tough loss by 3 points to Willamette, but then they picked up some good wins. They beat Roseburg on the road. That's a huge win. I watched Roseburg play against North Eugene earlier this season, and they looked great. Like you said, they got 5 guards, but those guys can all play. And so I was kind of surprised to see that win from Crater. So that was a good one. And then most recently they played in that Holiday Hoop Fest out
Yeah.
at Summit. And they dropped a game to Crook County, but were able to win their second 2. So 2-1 at that tournament's not terrible. So Crater Thurston for me are somewhat interchangeable, but that's who I have at 9 and 10.
All right, I have Crater at 7. I'm putting a little stock into that win over Roseburg. I think that's one of the more impressive wins out of these, teams kind of, right in that, 6 to 10 range. I think that's as good as a win as anyone's had. It's weird. I always like every game I was at, Crater was always like, or over this week, these last couple of days, like they're always like about to play, getting ready to play. But I never actually saw them play, and I would have liked to see them. Yeah, they lost, to Crook County, but Crook County, they might be a really good 4A team. They gave Summit some fits, really kind of close game against Summit. And they beat Ridgeview and Caldera, which, I'd kind of expect. I think, in the IMC, those are probably I think Ridgeview might be pretty good, but Caldera, they're gonna have a tough year just because they're so young and first year, and it's just a really good conference. So I think they probably beat the 5 and 6 seeds from the IMC. So yeah, I have them at 7, and then interesting enough. So I'll give you my who I have at number 9, and it could be interchangeable. It is either South Albany or Central. And because they're playing, like, as we're recording, they started about an hour ago.
Right.
Whoever wins that game, it will be number 8, and whoever loses will be number 9. So Albany, South Albany, Central winner is 9-8 there.
Gotcha. I agree with that. If we move along to my number 8 spot, I have Central. I gave them the nod, just because I like what they've done so far. But obviously, that game against South Albany is going to say a lot tonight. I'm interested to see that result. It should be, coming out on the website here in, a matter of, probably a half an hour or so.
Yeah. I will say though, I do have Central as number 8.
Right.
So at least right now.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I thought you had 9 as Central / South Albany, and whoever wins was in, and whoever lost.
Yeah. I initially went through this, I had Central 8, South Albany 9, and then I saw that they were playing tonight, and so that's kind of where I'm going.
Right. And if we're looking here, I just refreshed the page, and it's actually in. Central came away with the win at South Albany 55-45. So Perfect. They would probably be your number 8. And they're my number 8 as well. So that's a big win for them today. That game tipped at 5:30, so it just got recently finished up with. That's a big win on the road for Central. And they were able to pick up some good wins earlier this year as well against the 6A team in Sprague at the Capital City Classic. They also beat Silverton pretty handily at that same tournament. Those are 3 wins right there that I think say a lot at the 5A level. We can go deeper in their schedule. They won at Canby as well. They dropped 2 games to Cascade, but again, that's a really strong 4A team.
Yeah.
You mentioned that a little bit earlier.
And
So overall, I really like what Central's been able to do, and that South Albany win tonight kind of just solidifies that.
yeah, nothing like, getting a nice league win to start off the league schedule. So yeah. So yeah, South Albany 9, Central 8, who and add Crater 7. Who do you have? Who did you have 7?
Right. Yeah, I'll get into my 7. My seven's LaSalle. That's a team that, you know, they've dropped a lot of games. They're 4-5, but they haven't really dropped any games that's made me want to, drop them out of the top 10. They've played a pretty tough schedule for a 5A team so far. They've played Clackamas twice. They played Benson. They played South Medford, and they played a whole host of solid 5A teams as well. So that's a really tough schedule for a 5A team to take on before they get into league play. And I think 4-5 is somewhere around where I expected them to be at this point. To be honest,
Mhm.
maybe a hair better, but I like that they beat Ashland. I like that they beat Sunset as well, and I like that they beat Putnam. So again, that's 3 wins right there for LaSalle and Nick Robertson, who is a player we're kind of tracking as one of the top players in this classification this
Mhm.
year. They lost recently, and which was kind of a head scratching result. Maybe not head scratching because I'm high on North Eugene, but they dropped a game by 20 points to
Yeah.
North Eugene down in North Medford. So that's a tough loss for them for sure. That changed my perception of LaSalle. It like I said, the once you get past the top 5, it gets a little murky. Both all those teams have lost games, all of them have won games. But I like what LaSalle has on their roster, and I like the wins they've been able to pick up so far. We'll see if they can bounce back from that result.
Yeah. Big one tomorrow against Milwaukee.
Yes.
Yeah. LaSalle did not make my initial top 10. Um, and yeah, I might come back to regret that one. But now looking a little closer, they do have some close losses, but they also do have a lot of like double digit losses, and
Right.
I think that right now they're maybe their best loss is a 8-point loss to South Medford, and their best win is probably a win over Ashland, who was tournament team a year ago, so has some pieces there. So I'm not quite ready to put them up there just because I think the others had a little better body of work, but like you
Totally
mentioned,
understandable.
this could
My
be
ranking's not really based off what they've done. It's more just a faith in what they have.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what makes these top 10 so can be challenging times, because it's like, all right, do we base them on what they've done or what we believe that they can be? Is it a little mixture of both? And I think we'll probably see a little bit of that, maybe a little bit more as we kind of get more into this. All right, so through 7, I think this is going to be my most surprising one. Who do you have at 6?
Um, yeah, I mean six for me is also a pretty surprising one. We might have the same team. I don't know. My number 6 team is Woodburn.
Same,
Um,
same.
yeah, Woodburn has played really well so far, so I like that we're on the same wavelength there. Me and Brian think alike.
Yeah.
Go figure. The 2 guys on the 5A hoops pod. But if we look at their resume here real quick, their only losses are to Wilsonville, and then by 1 point to Sandy, and then by 2 points to Clackamas.
Mhm.
And I think that 2 point loss to Clackamas says a lot. I know you're probably putting some stock into that as well.
Mhm.
Clackamas is just a really solid team at the 6A level pretty consistently. And they've been the same this year. I mean, they're undefeated. I just clicked on their page and I didn't even know that. They're 8-0 as we speak today. And that includes wins over South Eugene, LaSalle, Southridge, North Medford. They beat LaSalle twice, actually.
Mhm.
So, I mean, for Woodburn to be able to hang in that game and really have a good chance to beat Clackamas. I wasn't able to watch it, obviously, but losing by 2, I mean, that was probably a real nail biter. And I think that game says a lot about what Woodburn's going to be able to do this year in the Northwest Oregon Conference. You look at a couple of their other results, they pulled off a 1-point win over Bend.
That's a
Um,
good one.
and that's a great win. Bend is a great team
Mhm.
that I know you know a lot about, but coming into the season, I knew that they were going to be sort of a top 10 contender. So that's the two main results that are sticking out to me and making me want to put Woodburn this high on my top 10.
Yeah, no, and then they just like blow out their other team. So like one, they can hang with people, and they can kind of blow people out a little bit. So really impressive showing by Woodburn, former 4A team, not too long ago, up in 5A doing some work. All right. So three of the top five, or the bottom five, we were in sync with. Thurston at 10, Central at 8, and Woodburn at 6. All right, let's get into the top 10. Not the top 10, the top five. I'll start this one off. I have number 5, Redmond.
Same.
Same.
It's common.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to like about Redmond. I really like they're kind of like a really like twitchy team. They're really athletic, and can all like really defend. I think some of that has to be like they're all like tennis players, so they all have like really good footwork and all move their feet really well. Um, I like Evan Auden is as good of a big as I think in the state. He's really really skilled. He can defend. He can a really good athlete for his size as well. Um, and he's just going to be just a matchup, nightmare for most teams, because a lot of teams aren't going to have someone who can have a body down low. Really like Tanner Jones as a guard, kind of running things. He's kind of taking a step into a bigger role this year. He's kind of like the off ball guard last year. Now he's running point this year. Nathan Watch, super athletic, five defending 5A champ, can defend. We'll interested to see how he kind of evolves, just because he's defender, kind of running the floor. We'll see if he has can if he has like more to his offensive game than just being someone who gets out in transition. And then Colton Horner, one of their bench players last year. The game I saw, he was awesome. Hit a ton of shots. Really kind of could be that floor spacer, really good jump shooter. And so yeah, I like Redmond a lot. I just like how they defend and get out on the break. And so yeah, 5 I think is a really good spot for him.
Totally agree. I think when we get this top 5, we've mentioned it a couple times. I think that discrepancy, our confidence in this top 5, comes from the fact that these teams have the talent and they have the body of work so far.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of up to this point, like that, some of that murk that I've been talking about in the 6 through 10 spots comes from the fact that we're putting these teams up there based on the talent they have or the body of work they've put forward, or some sort of combination of both. But all of these top 5 teams have great players and they've showed it so far.
Mm-hmm.
So Redmond's one of those teams, one of those 5. We look here, they're 8-1. The lone loss to arguably the 4A favorite in Philomath. And they're maybe the 4A favorite because of that wins. That's able to tell you how Redmond is sort of seen on this landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, other than that, they've just taken care of business. They beat South Albany by double digits. And yeah, other than that, they beat up on a lot of teams that they should have beat up on. And so I've been impressed with what they've been able to do.
Yeah, I was
I'm right with you.
I've only seen them play once, and it was Mazama, and it wasn't much of a game. They just kind of just throttled them. I wish they would have played in the tournament this weekend, but they were full on games. But yeah, Thursday, big matchup against Mountain View. That's gonna be a really fun one. I know Redmond, like their home crowds are always really good. And then I think this is one of the things that got everyone kind of excited about for bringing the Bend and Redmond schools back together, is for games like this where it's going to be, I anticipate a pretty full house at that one, and some great basketball. So really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's going to be an awesome game. Like you said, I love that they brought back that aspect of all those Bend area teams going at it. I've been asking for it here in the Eugene area. I want to see South Eugene and Sheldon
Mhm.
back in the league, so that we can have some of those crosstown battles back. But yeah, that's a cool element that they brought back to 5A this year.
Yeah. Um, all right. So moving on to number four. Um, I went with Churchill.
Okay. Do you want me to say where I have them at right now,
Yes.
like kind of like you did for Crater?
Yeah.
I have Churchill number two.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, that's just me putting a lot of stock into them being undefeated so far and playing what I think has been a pretty tough schedule. We can count it here. They've played one, two, three, four, five, six A opponents, and
Mhm.
they've gone 6-0, obviously, against those teams. So I don't know if there's another 5A team that's been able to do that so far. That almost certainly not. So that's been really impressive in my eyes. And then if we look at the inner 5A matchups, they played Thurston. They were able to take care of business there in a tight game. That's part of the reason why we have Thurston up in our top 10.
Mhm.
And they smoked Crescent Valley 66-46. And they won on the road against Milwaukee. So they've taken care of business on multiple levels, both 5A and 6A so far. So I think it's just been an excellent job by Sky Stickney in his first year here with the Lancers. They're definitely a story to watch. I mean, still unbeaten. So yeah, that had me placing them all the way at my number two spot this
Oh,
week.
all right. Well, here's what I have written in my notes. It's like, yes, they are undefeated, but where's their marquee win? I know they played a lot of 6A schools, but a lot of those 6A schools haven't racked up a ton of wins. And so that's why I dropped them a little bit, just because, it's like, oh, they beat Jefferson, and Jefferson's all like that was one that kind of popped up. Well, Jefferson's won three of its games. Like, oh, they beat Sheldon. Sheldon hasn't. They're 4-7, and so I know that Churchill's a great program and have been for a long time, and so I just kind of like expect them to be able to go into a 6A game, and or if they're playing a middle of the road 6A team, to be able to go in and beat them. So four Churchill's at four for me. I could be wrong, but that's what we
No,
do
that's
it.
totally fair. All your criticisms are fair. All the 6A teams they've played, I'm pretty sure all of them are still 500 as of right now. So you're right. They haven't picked up a super marquee win yet, but I still think they deserve credit for being 10-0. And you aren't exactly shorthanding them. You got them at number 4 in the state.
Yeah.
So I think we still pretty much agree about these Lancers so far this year.
Mhm. All right. So who's your number three?
Number 3, right now. Oh, actually, wait, I haven't even gotten into my number 4 yet.
Yeah, go number four. Yes.
So yeah, number 4 is my I have Mountain View.
Okay.
I really love Mountain View. I watched them beat up on South Eugene, my high school alma mater. I watched
Mhm.
that earlier this year, and I was really impressed with what they have and what they were able to do in that game. And it's kind of been more of the same since. They are 7-1 with a recent loss to Roseburg, which is kind of a head scratcher there. Something to track, sort of. They haven't maybe been as dominant of late, but they
Mhm.
beat them by 16 earlier in the year. So I'm not too worried about that result right there.
Mhm.
A lot is going to come down to this game on the road against Redmond. That's going to be another sort of test for these guys. But I like Mountain View to win that game. I think they have a lot of talent on their team. I think Quincy Townsend is probably going to be the best all around player on the floor. But that's going to be a really
Mhm.
fun game to watch. I think that's going to say a lot about this top 5.
Yeah, that second game against Roseburg this last weekend, I'd have to look at the exact number, but they missed like all their free throws. Like,
Wow.
it was like they were like 5 for 14, something like that. And then Roseburg was like 15 for 18. Like, just so just things like that, where it can just making your free throws can, be the difference between winning and losing. I'll just segue in. I have Mountain View at 3. I really like this team. This is now, third year now of watching Quincy Townsend, and he just like continues just to like get better and better. And he came in as a freshman, just like ready to go and ready to just like lead a team in scoring. Just like can shoot from anywhere, just terrific range. But man, they also like to post him up. So he just has just like this full like arsenal of offensive game. And you saw that. I think he dropped 31 or 33 against Roseburg this weekend. Just he's just going to score. I've said this often, but I think he's going to flirt with 2,000 points for his career. And that's even with a shortened year, his freshman year. The one thing that kind of concerns me with Mountain View, like they do have some really nice kind of complementary players like Nathan Hollingston. They're kind of wing, really athletic, good rebounder, high energy guy. Ian Prichter, Tony Prichter's younger brother, another kind of big body. He's a little shorter, maybe a little more athletic. I like those pieces to kind of go with them. But it's like if like Quincy has an off game, is there going to be someone who can kind of take over that kind of secondary kind of scoring role like with some consistency? So anyway, that's kind of like the one question I have with Mountain View is who's going to be kind of that second scorer on
and
a
we may get a partial answer as they travel to Redmond here this week. So that's going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, no, definitely going to be an awesome one. All right, so you haven't given your 3. Who's your 3?
Yeah, I'll move along to number 3. I have Summit. I think I in the preseason, I definitely had Summit as the number 1 team, but I think they've lost 2 games so far this year that I thought that they were going to win when I looked at their schedule in the preseason. And those games were at Sherwood and versus Cascade Christian on their home floor in that Les Schwab tournament that you were at. Obviously, Cascade Christian's an amazing team, and that says a lot about what they were able to do. But Summit at 6-3, or no, it's actually 5-3.
5-3,
yeah. I just think that they've showed a couple chinks in the armor that I did not think were there when they were able to beat South Medford in that season opener. Not to take away anything from Sherwood and Cascade Christian. Like I said, Sherwood's a terrific team at the 6A level. Most years, they're definitely the most dominant force in the Pacific Conference. I know we've talked about this game in the past. That's not really a horrible loss, and neither is Cascade Christian. But there's still 2 games that I expected that stacked squad in Summit to be able to win. So, in my opinion, sort of 2 head scratchers. I'm going to drop them down to number 3 for now, but this is definitely a team that I think is going to be able to compete for a title come March. So I'm not too worried about them. I just think they deserve to be knocked a little bit for slipping up a couple of times so far this year.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I still have them at 1. This is part of the, what they've done versus what you think they can be. I still think when Summit's at their best, they're going to be almost impossible to beat. But like you said, they do have some some areas where they might be a little like if we're comparing it to like last year's team was a bunch of just like quick guards, great shooting kind of around, and then they had Caden down in kind of down low, but they're definitely like spread you out, and they could really shoot it. This year's team just doesn't really just have those those snipers that last year had, at least yet. Pearson's a really good shooter, but he's he has the ball kind of a lot and is kind of creating off the dribble. And there's just and this is what I was thinking during the Cascade game when they were like trailing. Like, man, they need someone who can. They need a shooter, and it could be someone could emerge. But right now, they may not have the shooting as they had a year ago. but they still have like just so many good players. They have two players who can like really kind of take over a game. Um, yeah, and when you get down to it, they're 6 points away from or 7 points away from being undefeated. Um, and especially in the Cascade Christian game, one of the things that what was kind of apparent is that this team is still kind of learning who they are and kind of like their roles. And Cascade Christian, like they knew, and you could see that, they kind of knew what to do, and like they had like extreme kind of trust in each other on how to execute late in games. And Summit's still kind of figuring that out, just like whole new starting lineup, whole new rules. So I expect them to kind of turn this around, like, and I think when they're at their best, man, they're gonna be tough to beat. So that's why I still have them one.
Totally agree, man. The only reason I've slighted them slightly on these rankings is at one point I thought that they were clearly the 5A favorites, and now I don't think it's as clear. I think there's some other teams up there that could compete with this Summit team. But yeah, like you said, they still have a lot of talent on this team. Pearson's a terrific shooter, a terrific player. I expect them to, do I still? Yeah, I have them ranked as the top team in the IMC, so I still think they're going to be able to dominate that league and be among the top 5A state contenders when it comes down to the tournament in Gill Coliseum. I think they will be there. I think they will be among the top seeds. So this number 3 ranking is not the end of the world. I think they could be back to 1 maybe next week. We'll see what happens, but they're definitely among the 5A favorites.
Yeah, and like another like really just kind of interesting wrinkle is like they're in many ways kind of like fighting just like the ghosts of last year and their boys soccer team. They go on this championship run, and they the assumption is like moving down to 5A that they're just gonna walk through without any resistance, and they're just gonna just kind of dominate at 5A, but that didn't happen. And so I think with this basketball team, they kind of have to fight those expectations as well. Like the basketball team that went and to the 6A final last year, and even though they graduated their whole starting lineup and all these great players, the assumption is like, oh, they're just going to come in and walk through 5A, when that's probably not going to be the case, because this team is still kind of forming its own identity and figuring out its roles and all that. So yeah, I totally can see why you have Summit at 3. I'm just kind of banking on the what I think they can be. And right now I think when they're at their best, which I think they'll be able to get to, and over the next couple of months, I think that they'll be, the ones potentially holding up the trophy.
For sure. I could easily see it happening. My 2 is Churchill. We went over that earlier. Your number 1 is Summit. That kind of leaves us with one team that we both have as the top 2 team, but in separate spots here, I believe, and that's the Wilsonville Wildcats. They have a pretty good resume so far. They've been able to pick up some good wins. They beat Woodburn by 16, who's a team that has impressed you and I so far this year. They beat North Eugene in their own invitational tournament that they hosted, same tournament they beat Woodburn at. They beat Silverton by 9, and they beat Cascade by 18. So that's a huge win. I think that's probably their best win so far. Over a really solid 4A squad in Cascade. It's been solid this year. If we look at the losses, 1 point to Beaverton. That's a great loss, honestly. Beaverton is among the 6A favorites this year. They're stacked from top to bottom. Their starting lineup is probably 5 guys that are going to play some form of college basketball. So that loss was honestly impressive in my eyes. So I gave them some points for that. And I just barely have Wilsonville number 1 over Churchill and Summit. I think those 3 right now you could make an argument for each of them being number 1. And I think they're probably going to be the 3 top contenders when we get to March later this season. But obviously it's tough to say. there's a lot of basketball left to be played. So yeah, I'm excited for us to get into this league play, and this top 10 will sort of come into focus a little bit more for us.
Yeah, no, I have Wilsonville too. I was tempted to put Mountain View 3 or put Mountain View at 2. I think I initially had them in, but it's like, no, can't be too much of a homer, right off the bat. But like you said, they've beaten everyone besides, West Salem and Beaverton. Beaverton, yeah, a 1 point loss to them is, super, just really impressive because, the only teams that Beaverton's lost to is Duncanville, and like they lost to Tualatin by 1 point. And so, yeah, you just kind of and you're also just like banking on the, the pedigree of the program that they'll be right there at the very end. So yeah, before we go out, let's give just a quick rundown of who we got. So at number 10, I had Thurston, 9 South Albany, 8 Central, 7 Crater, 6 Woodburn, 5 Redmond, 4 Churchill, 3 Mountain View, 2 Wilsonville, and 1 Summit.
And then we look at my top 10. 10, I also had Thurston, 9 Crater, 8 Central, 7 I have LaSalle, 6 Woodburn, 5 Redmond, 4 Mountain View, 3 Summit, 2 Churchill, and number 1 Wilsonville.
All right. You going out to any games this week?
I haven't decided officially on any, but one that's certainly catching my eye tomorrow. I believe South Eugene travels to Churchill, so that's another test for those Lancers. And they've passed test after test so far this year. So I'm excited to get to witness another one of those. I'm going to try to make it out to that game for sure. And yeah, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be awesome getting to see these rankings kind of come into a clearer focus, and getting to see where these teams are truly at as they battle through league play.
Yeah, no, I'm one game for sure going out to. I'm going out to Mountain View Redmond. Just gotta see this top 5 matchup and just kind of see, because I've only seen each team. Well, never mind. I saw Mountain View twice in a day, or twice in 2 days at the tournament. And I've only seen Redmond once, and I'm excited to just kind of learn more about them and just kind of see how they're able to hang with these teams. So yeah, should be another fun week of basketball. This is kind of like now we're into like the real season where these games actually matter, and all the stuff that happened before, it's just kind of fun to talk about like we just did. But these are the games where seeding happens, where playoff spots are won, and it's just a great time of year.
Yeah, man. I mean, we put off these rankings because the picture was not clear enough a couple of weeks ago for us to even put together a ranking. And I think there's still a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of basketball left to be played, but there's also a lot left to be seen here in terms of where these teams are at. And yeah, especially those 6 through 10 spots, those are all up for grabs. I think 6 through 15 is pretty close, and then I also think those top 5 teams are pretty neck and neck. So yeah, we got a lot of basketball left to be played and a lot of results left to be seen.
All right, he's Jackson Noggle. I'm Brian Rathbone. Thanks everyone for joining in another episode of The Main Event. See you next time.